Hello. This is a video I wasn't too keen on making, but it's a video that I think we are probably going to have to take seriously. I think it could be curtains for Clement. I know. You're going to be upset. Well, some of you won't. Some of you will not care. And some of you will be happy, but some of you will be sad, and I'm sad as well. So, first things first, I need to address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the comment section, which by and large, actually for me, is a largely positive experience. I'm really fortunate. I have this amazing little community of people that always watch the videos. It's probably, a community of people that I share with other like-minded channels on here. And I'm eternally grateful for that. There are some really good characters. You will occasionally get people going, oh, that's too far gone. Oh, that's rusted out. Oh, that's rubbish. Oh, that's fit for the scrapyard. Oh, don't pressure wash it, bits will fall off it. Ooh. And there will be people now who will be taking pleasure in seeing me effectively admitting, no, I'm not going to admit that they're right, because they're not right. They don't know. Well, some of them don't know what they're talking about at all. But some of these people will be going, I could have told you that was going to happen. I could have seen this coming a mile off. Did you see the state of it? Oh, of course it's going to be wrecked. What are you like? Are you an idiot? So to these people, and my response to these people, I have to choose my words carefully. How can I put it? It would be that. To everybody else, I'm going to explain why I think this is not going to happen, and try and give you all a valid explanation into my thinking. So if we go back in time, when I first got the car, I forget when it was now. It's over a year, isn't it? So basically, laying it all out there. Originally, the car was not a car I was buying. I was not purchasing the car with money. What I was doing was having the car given to me as payment in exchange for doing somebody a favour, for working on their car. And it wasn't done through work. It wasn't in work time. It was weekends and things like that. It was completely unrelated. And it was a way of me owning a DS, basically. So I have made some mistakes along the way here, and I'm going to hold my hands up as to what they are. Initially, I see the car that I'm supposed to be doing up, which was a BX, and think, wow, that's a mess. And even if you go through it and do the bits you can see, there are bound to be bits that you can't. So it's a huge project. However, DS. Well, it's not a DS, it's a D Super 5, but I got excited. So I'd already gone, okay, let's have a look at the DS. So the DS comes down, or the D Special comes down, and it drives down, okay? So that's clue number one, it drove itself here. Clue number two is in Car and Classic, I think it was. In fact, it may have even been, now I've read it again since he mentioned it, it may have even been a friend of the channel, Chris Pollitt, who wrote the article. But Car and Classic featured this car when it was for sale originally, after the estate of the late owner was being cleared out. And basically said, it's a running car. I mean, he was just taking it based on what the advert said. And the advert said it was a running car, but it was going to have problems, but it's had all the work done underneath, tons of work done underneath. Turns out £25,000 of work done underneath, and basically it was just shabby on the top, needs a few bits doing underneath. It was mentioning holes and sills and things like that. Now, in fairness, anybody who's written the advert on this car, and even the people I got the car off, or the person I got the car off, would not have known what I know now. Okay, I may be being stupidly naive, but I don't think they'd have known what I know now. So let's not go pointing fingers, okay? So yeah, you get the idea. The car has been in garages. It's had lots of work spent. You open the bonnet and you see a still green, just a little bit dusty Citroen steering rack. There's like a 2-year wait at least for those. Those are reputed, and by all accounts, the best reconditioned steering rack you can get in the world for a DS. These guys are, there are few people that do it, but these guys are that at doing it. So that's worth as much as the car, really. So yeah, there are bits of the car that I'm seeing when I first see the car and think, okay, let's have a look at this, because it looks horrendous. I mean, it looks great, but from a condition point of view, it looks horrendous. So the first thing we need to remember, and do I have anything to hand? I do. The first thing we need to remember, no, I'm not going to lift that. Hang on, 2 seconds. I'm back now. And as we can see, a rear wing. This is from Audrey, or Clement from Wish, as my kids have termed it. So that wing there is the same as all the other panels on Audrey. I don't mean the same colour, because they're not. Basically, all the panels on a DS are removable. So anything you see on a DS from the outside, and this is 100% true, there is not a single panel that you can see on a fully dressed DS, or not a DS in Audrey's case, that is structural. It is all removable. Everything hangs off that frame. Okay, so regardless of how Clement looked, underneath there was every chance it was Concord. I mean, it wasn't any chance, but there is a chance that it's very solid and good and mechanically sound. The suspension worked really well, rode unbelievably well, the brakes worked well, the steering worked well, the gear change seemed okay. The clutch was making some horrible noises. Now we look back at it, that bugs me. I think I should have mentioned that at the time of the deal, because there clearly wasn't something right. It was obvious there was something right, but I take full responsibility. I could have said something and I didn't. So otherwise the engine seemed good, healthy enough, sounded rough because it had no exhaust basically, because it's like rat look. It's funny. So basically, yeah, the core of it seemed good. Added to the fact that we know it allegedly had £25,000 worth of work done on it. And then there were bits around the car that when I went to look at them, I thought, okay, right, that sets me up to see the kind of condition that we're looking at. So I shall show you these things now. So the things I was looking at was this welding here. Now, although the welding is pretty ugly, if I'm honest, that is not the best, but the fabrication is, okay, again, a little ugly, but there is thought there. This bar here has little kinks in it. There's supposed to be a brace running across there for reference, like this one. But rather than buy one from new, like from Citroen Classics or whatever, they've just made this. I don't know why, but they did put a tow eye on it, and that is probably a wise move. So yes, that is ugly. It's not nice, but there's enough there to make me think there's thought shown in this. It's kinked, it meets up, it probably is strong, it's probably stronger than what was there before. I think, fine, okay. So if we walk to the rear of the car, another part I saw is when I opened the boot, it's a bin at the moment, that boot, but when I opened the boot I noticed this, and I showed some of this in the initial videos, and this is not great, admittedly, but I've seen this done. People seem to think this is exact, I don't know why, MOT standard maybe. I mean, it's steam welded that side and not even stitch welded that side, more like tack welded, but regardless, I mean, this is not the best welding. I was going to go over this anyway, but when you look at the bits that have been done in the boot there, it's all been painted, everything, the wiring, the pipework, the lot, which is normally a bad sign. When you see a car and someone's painted everything and haven't masked anything up, you think, but I know what it's like to do things for people not necessarily on a budget, but keeping one eye on cost, because you could rinse thousands, tens of thousands. Well, someone has rinsed tens of thousands. But so I saw this. This is what I was looking at. It had a new floor that seemed solid. I lifted some carpets. It's dirtier in there than it was. So it's all been painted in this grey stuff. And this is before we found out about the letterboxes of doom on the other side there, and I think there was one on this side here, that. So before all that, you know, the core of it seemed okay. I knew that there was a leak. I was told by the guy I got it off, there is a leak around the windscreen, so I knew something was going on there. I could see little bits of rust. Obviously, I didn't know how bad it was until I took it all apart, but I knew there was something that needed doing. You'd have to be silly to assume not. So that's the first stage we got to. At this point, I've got a running car. It rises, it falls. It doesn't really have any LHM leaks to speak of. I'm sure there were a couple, but yeah, nothing horrendous. It seems to respond well on the throttle. The steering is okay. The brakes are good. The suspension is lovely. It just looks like it does. And some of the welding could be prettier, but from the bits I've seen, it looks like, okay, someone who's done this has thought, they kind of shown willing. So I think, right, okay, so any work that's been done, we're going to assume is done to that standard. You should never assume. Never assume. So things move on. At that point, I'm quite confident. I'm quite happy with it. I think, right, okay. Remember, this car was coming in. This is a dry run for that thing. So that was the whole point. It was a dry run of that. I'm still scared of the SM, but I'm not scared of, well, I'm definitely not scared of that. And I've been working on Clement from Wish as well for some time. And they're actually not bad to work on. In fact, these are actually nice cars to weld. I've never heard anyone say this before. Maybe DS people will look at me like I'm mad. I think they made a really nice quality steel. They're really good to weld. You know, if you can be quite lax with a welder, you can just have quite a bit of current going through it and it'll take it. So I don't know why that is, but yeah, I assume it's either good quality steel or quite thick, but they are quite tank-like. This is not the era of all French cars fall apart. No, this isn't that era. These are like a tank. But regardless, I was at the point where I had a running, operable D Super 5 that drove itself here and had been driving up and down the country, going to car shows and things and collecting ribbons and whatnot. And they had their little disguises in the back to make themselves look French and everything. Okay, so it's been used. It's had loads of work done. It's covered in grey paint. It ain't the prettiest, but what's been done so far passes. It could be good enough. And having made the mistake of assuming everything was going to be good enough, I didn't get far enough to find out it was a problem, because I don't know if you remember when I was doing, I think it was a C6 video, Clement suddenly wouldn't change gear anymore. The clutch, something around the clutch has gone wrong. And then something with the start motor started playing up. Now, the most skeptical part of me, the most negative part of me thinks, hang on, so the clutch was making awful noises and the starter motor now doesn't work. What are they both bolted to? The flywheel. Why would the flywheel suddenly not work with the starter motor, and why would the clutch suddenly be affected? I'm thinking end float in the crankshaft. That may not be it. Genuinely, that may not be it. That's the worst case scenario at this point. So I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm not being funny. The sort of engine this is, if that was the case, I'd whip the sump off, put some fresh washers in it, because I'm guessing it hasn't had any put in it. If it's moving that much, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be absolutely mechanical. It's not an SM. It hasn't got to be like that. This is a lump of an engine, right? So I can live with that. I wasn't too worried, but it was now no longer a working DS. It was a working DS before. Whatever, I'm just going to call it a DS, even though it's not a DS. It was a working one before, now it's not. But you know, otherwise, structurally it was all right. We stuck it on the ramp in one of those early videos, had a look underneath it. Not amazing, but passable. We can do something with it. So then I decided, before I was going to take the engine and whatnot apart, I was going to take the roof off. And I took the roof off because my logic being that if I jack the front of the car up to remove the engine, if the roof is weak, I'm going to start putting more stress on it. At the moment, I don't think, I've been told, people have said to me that they think that taking the roof out without bracing the shell is an issue. I personally don't agree. The strength of the car is in the long rons down the side. They are heavy box section steel, and the roof has no strength to it at all. It's literally there, the rails, it's something to put the fiberglass on. There's no strength in them. I can bend them with my hand, right? So I'm not worried about that. However, if I was to start jacking it up and putting the axle stands in different places and leaning on it and what, that might be pushing it. So I haven't done that yet. My plan was to do the roof and everything, do everything up there, put glue the roof on, because I was going to bond the roof back on, the fiberglass one, and then do everything at this end. That was the plan. So I took the roof off, and as we remember, in taking the roof off, I shall go through my stash of evidence, problems. That was what we found at the front. Now this is filler, as you can see, and that went up there. And well, I'm telling you all this, you know all this already, but that's where that went. So yeah, a lot of people would see this and go, oh my God. But I knew there was a problem up here, and I had bought new parts. I made the mega jig, and that's behind me, and it has the new roof rails all fitted to it, ready to go on. So I knew there was an issue with that, and I made the jig and I got the parts, and we're good to go. Not a problem, because the rest of the car has been welded, and I'm going to assume that the person who did this is not the person who did the welding repairs and painted everything grey. I mean, I might be being naive there, because, well, you'll see. So a lot of people would have thrown the towel in at this point. They would have also thrown it in at the point where I had to undo some of the wiring that had been put in it, which was just, yeah. But again, the wiring is quite simple, and a very kind viewer of the channel, who I've completely forgotten his name now. I'm awful with names and faces, but he sent me a used wiring loom. So if I want, I can stick an original loom in it, or I can use it to make this one better. I'm not going to put the relays and fuses underneath the bonnet shut line, for example, because, you know, when it rains, they're straight underneath where the water drips in. So yeah, I didn't put any thought too much into that. I knew it was going to be bad. I knew there was some bits under it that weren't great, but at this point I had got Audrey in, and we're seeing how that was responding to the work I was putting in. A lot of hours, but it is responding. It's getting there. It's starting to move forward. So although that might have been a point where people would have gone, ooh, warning signs, I was confident. I was buoyant. I was in a kind of a flowing mood. I normally do TVRs and maybe BXs occasionally, but I'm into DSs now. I'm doing DSs and I'm confident. I'm moving. Everything I'm doing on Audrey, I'm buying the parts and it's working. So Clement will be the same. So I didn't stop at the roof. I carried on. I made the mega jig. I spent a lot of money on parts, and then I didn't do a huge amount. I've been busy, been doing other things. Live stream, which hit £15,000 today. They're just giving Page hit £15,000. You legends. The last little bit was Chop's Garage. He put in, and he sold the Jag on a raffle. I didn't win it, which was, yeah, no, that's probably for the best, actually. That would look dodgy. But he put in, he got more money than he thought for that raffle because it was so popular. So he put in a bit extra, 800 odd quid, nearly 900 quid, I think it was. Whitelands Restorations, another 900 quid they made in those SM magnets. So it was a huge success, a massive success. Blew last year away. So I was on a high from that. And I've been busy doing all that and haven't looked much at Clement. I've been working like hell in here. A lot of hours on Professor Tomato. I've been looking at other things, a lot of hours on Audrey. Yeah, there's been all sorts going on. Selling VEP. Sold my dad's BXGT, which you haven't seen, but that's sold. I've got to get that in and do some work on it. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Clement was on the back burner, but I have been itching to get going on Clement again. I have been working on Audrey, doing certain repairs on Audrey, judging Audrey's owner for buying Audrey, needing these repairs, whilst being of the opinion that everything underneath Clement was largely okay. And that was my mistake. Now, the reason this was a mistake, I shall show you. This is Audrey. Say hello to Audrey, everybody. You probably know Audrey. You go on Twitter, you'd have seen Audrey. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So Audrey has been sucking up many, many hours and many, many, many of Mr. Scruff's pounds. But Audrey is getting there. So, very quick explanation of what's going on here. This is Audrey's Superleggera rear window, Storm Kieran rear window, because I had to push it outside yesterday. So, behold, holes. So many holes in Audrey. Audrey is a mess. I told him, look for rust in this area when you go to see the car, because that is a commonplace and it may need doing. He did look, he just didn't look very well. By his own admission, he was excited. So, on this side, I've been working, as you can see. So, this bit here, that bit is a new panel, as is that piece in there, and that piece in there. There's no seam sealer at all, so at the moment you will see little gaps and things, although that's not actually a gap, that's just for some reason the paint's not stuck to it, but yeah, you will see little gaps and things. It's not been fully linished off, ready for seam sealer. There are a couple of welds that need dressing. Basically, I haven't welded this plate in yet either. That is, I think that one. Oh, that's annoying, I've made it too small. Yeah, that's frustrating. Damn. Right, I'll ignore that. So I'll make another one of those slightly bigger. But yeah, this little patch here was just too rusty, so I was just going to put that extra little piece in. So Audrey has had C-pillar work here and here. Let me put the light on. And then on the inside, has not, this is all manky, because this is the inside of welding. So this is what welding looks like from the back. Yeah, the new piece there. That piece there, so you can see there was a join along here, because Audrey didn't have this little dimple that gives you better access for a seatbelt mount. Originally Audrey had flat panels, but you can't really see. And now Audrey has down there a seatbelt mount. So Audrey has, and some extra welding down there as well, Audrey has provisions now for rear seatbelts. That is a mount for an inertia rear seatbelt. Audrey will have inertia rear seatbelts. We are both very proud, me and the owner, of that. So yeah, it looks a bit minging in there at the moment. There's a little bit more lineation to do, and then there will be seam sealer and paint to seal it all up and everything like that. So I'm looking at that thinking, God, that's ugly. But I know that that's just, you know, all this is new. This is a repair section of parcel shelf, although I only ended up doing this corner and then realised that I'd missed that bit as well. Yeah, so that is what needs doing on Audrey. I have not done the other side yet, but that's for your reference. You can see that that's the kind of work that Audrey needed. Now, Clement had been done there. Done being the operative word. So what I pulled out of Clement yesterday was this. You want to guess what that is? That is sealant. That is like mastic. It stinks, and that is the smell in Clement. The way Clement smells disgusting. It's this sealant, because that sealant was covering all that. Yeah. The bottom of the inner C-pillar is just rust that had been bunged up with sealant. The top of the parcel shelf was just sealant. That panel there has been bent over and not welded in. It's been kind of welded in down there, but this is the standard of repair we're looking at. The other side, of course, is the same, although the lump of sealant was smaller. I haven't weighed all the sealant yet. That sealant, there you go, that's as big as the speaker that was in the dashboard. That's how big that sealant is. So this is what we're basically up against. The inner arch, original one, has just been left. There's a new piece here, welded in, but it's over the top of all the rust. So it still needs cutting out. This bit has been welded in and then filler put in to mask the horrendous welding. Filler and paint make me the welder I ain't. That's the saying, isn't it? It's all completely junk up there. We knew that already. But now I call into question all the other repairs, because although I can see this one, what else am I going to find that is like, I mean, underneath all the filler, there's holes. There's holes in this, here. There's holes in this. Look. I mean, what's that plate there has been welded along there. It's been welded up the C-pillar, and at the top, oh, we're not going to bother welding it, we'll just hit it with a hammer. So the other side isn't quite as bad, although the other side has, oh yeah, that bit. Yeah, there. So, well, again, we're just not going to bother welding that. This has been chewed out with by a hamster with metal teeth, it looks like. Nothing doing with that. What have we got down here? Oh, okay. So, instead of welding that bit, we're just going to fill it with sealant. So, we're not even going to get rid of the rust. So the original rusty metal was still there. It's just, there's a new plate behind it, and we're just going to pack a load of sealant there. And we're going to put sealant into the door frame too, into the C-pillar here, that the door attaches to. Now it's gone. That's now fallen out. We're not going to do anything about that hole down there either, that doesn't matter. We're just going to put white sealant over everything. We're going to put it here. And the best bit, we're going to put sealant. Was it this side or the other side? Or did I pull it out? Maybe I pulled it out. These holes here were bunged up with sealant. Those are drain holes. They are to literally stop it filling up with water and rusting. I mean, there are no words really. So now, every time you see a piece of sealant like this here, you think, well, what's underneath it? What's under here? This is all sealant down there. I mean, that needed doing anyway, but what, you know, what else is there? What about all the sealant that's in the bits on the floor? If someone was happy to leave the most structurally significant part of the car open like that, and now I've seen all this, and a brick-sized piece of sealant, I'm now myself finally catching up with everyone else and going, thinking to myself, no, that's no good. You see the problem. So now we've gone from a ratty looking, structurally solid, if not beautiful, mechanically alright, enough to be getting on with, it works, version of a D that I was getting in exchange for doing some work on another car. Now, that's where we started. That's where Clement came into the picture, and anyone who's judging Clement was judging it at that point, okay? What we've ended up with, and well, as an aside, the car that I was doing up in return for Clement is not happening, because I basically said, look, I'm sorry, that's too far gone. I can't do that. And now, with the work that had been uncovered with the roof, I haven't got time to do both. Got to the point where I just did not have enough time to do both. And I knew he wanted to sell it anyway. It was £2,000. I'll be completely upfront. It was £2,000 for Clement, which is probably more than it's worth. But I did have some, I sold him some bits, so it worked out £1,700 changed hands. So it was cheaper for me to buy Clement, to say, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to abandon my work on the BX, because basically I could not fix that car for him, that BX for him, for less than £2,000. It was going to be significantly longer than that to do that. So, because it needed everything, it needed mechanics, it needed suspension repiping, and we don't know what other hydraulic problems it's got. And my standard is, people take the mick, but my standards are quite high. So if I'd got it working and then drove it and thought, well, that's not right, I'd have had to keep going until it was right. And so, yeah, it would have just not been worth it. I mean, it was never worth it. But at the time I convinced myself that it was, but it never was. So I bought Clement in the end, paid for it, because it was a cheaper thing to do. And I figured, even if the worst comes to the worst, it has that steering rack on it, which has got to be worth, maybe not £1,000, because it is technically used, but it ain't going to be far off, because those things are sought after, and there's a 2-year waiting list for them. There's no return on that one, it's just there. There you go. Someone wants a Citroen right-hand drive rack that's done very little use. There you go. So there are enough bits on it to justify the price, I thought. I thought it's probably worth that in bits. So we started with a running, very shabby on the outside, although part of the charm, shabby underneath but solid, D Super 5, a good model, a sought after model. Well, it's sought after, but a good model to have. Enough of the toys on it to make it proper DS-like without going full hydraulic gear change. And then we slowly became a non-running one, which was annoying, but we had heard it run. I had driven it, so I know that underneath it was still okay, despite the fact it was now a non-runner. And then there was the roof, and you think, oh, okay, wow, that's a lot, but right, okay, well, I've started, so I'll finish. And the goalposts started there, and this one, everyone was judging it. They are now, got windy pops. They are now doing this, and I'm trying to build a wall in the middle, and I keep doing this. And now the goalposts are nearly as wide, they're nearly as far apart really as that. And this was supposed to be the dry run. This was supposed to be the practice, the warm-up for that. But it's not. This is now developing into a bigger project as that. Maybe not in cost of parts, because it doesn't have a Maserati V6 in the front. But yeah, I mean, that's more complete than this is. That's worth, when it's done, way more than this is. And the other thing is that if I did put all this work and all this effort into rebuilding this thing, with the bodywork it has, it's still going to be worth like a little bit more than I paid for it. Because I paid £2,000 for it, but that is, I'm basically trying to turn it into what I thought it was, or what I thought it should be. And it isn't. And to get it there is going to take way more than it's worth. So for anyone who watched it and knows DS's and said, oh, I don't think that's really worth it, they were probably right. They were probably right. They probably had a fair point. But I got excited. It was a DS. I was excited. Now looking at it, with obviously hindsight, I'm not even going to mention hindsight because, you know, you can only make choices at the time. I did go into it a little bit too gung-ho. I named it a mistake. It gave it a character, a mistake. I have had stickers done. Well, no, I've had the artwork done for stickers. A bigger mistake. Because now I'm at a very serious crossroads. I haven't made my decision at the crossroads. The likelihood is that I'm going to turn off one of the directions, but I could continue straight on at the crossroads and carry on and just accept that it's going to negatively impact everything else. I could turn left at the crossroads and sell it and break it for parts, or break it for parts. Basically get my money back, which is my number one thing with it. If I was to give up, is just try and claw that money back that I put into it. I mean, I bought the parts as well, another £1,000 worth of bits. So I could go straight on and carry on. I could go left and bail out, or go right. And going right, I don't know. Going right would involve having to restore the thing including the bodywork, going all out on it, because there is no point. I mean, the rear pillars now, the C pillars, it's added another, it's probably added another 600 quid's worth of parts alone, because I can't make that stuff. I can't make the shapes, the curves, the contours that you have to make those parts. I was looking for one just now, but I can't. Where is it? So there's 3 parts here. This is an outer C-pillar repair panel, and that doesn't go right to the top. The full size one goes right to the top. Those are £50 each. That's 35, but the other ones are £50 each because of these curves. You have to get these. If you don't get them bang on, the rear window won't fit properly, or it won't look right. So this has to be bang on. I couldn't make that for 50 quid. I mean, I couldn't make it anyway, but I could definitely, maybe after a day I could make that. Then you've got that one. Again, curves, profiles, dimples, folds, bends. That's just been pressed. I can't make that. That one I probably could make without this. So, I don't know why it needs it, because it's so... But yeah, so you're looking at those bits either side, plus the partial shelf repair ends, which is one of these. These are not cheap either. They have a recess there. That's where the seatbelt mount goes. That is where... Oh God, it's all going to fall. So it kind of goes like that. So that's the kind of the rear corner of a DS. I mean, I'm looking at £600 worth of parts. So then if you put in all this extra effort and all this time this is going to suck up, bearing in mind I'm trying to run a business single-handedly and have a family, if I do all that and it looks the way it did when it came in, it's going to be worth about the same as what I paid for it. So it's completely pointless. I love the look of it. I love the character it has. I love the character it brings to the channel. It did make a few hundred quid in video revenue, so it has bought some of that back, but it just would not be worth it. It would only be worth it if I was to then get some used half-decent panels, send them all off to Whiteland Restorations and say, can you paint them all Delta Blue for me? And then bring them back and bolt them to it once it was all done, because then it's worth whatever, 15 grand or 20 grand or whatever, because it would be done properly, you know. But then would it be Clement anymore? And where's this time coming from? Because that's the other problem. Time. The time this is sucking up. Imagine if I'd started the SM. Imagine that. Imagine that all this fabrication I'd done, making mega jigs and bracing and everything like that. Imagine I'd gone to the back of the SM, taken the tailgate off, taken the back lights out, and slowly started on the rear panel and worked forwards. I mean, the point was that this was a working car, so I thought I could get Clement on the road this year, which hasn't happened, and be driving it about and stuff. And it's a kind of an interim thing before the SM is raidable. The SM is going to be a little while longer, obviously. So it was going to be like a makeshift thing. But that's forgetting the fact that there are other cars here. There's the TVR. There's Hilda right here. I mean, the time that it's gone into this, I probably could have finished the TV, well, not finished, but I could have got the TVR roadworthy and possibly pulled the gearbox out of Hilda and found out what the hell I did to it at Goodwood. So I'm looking at it now thinking, it's just not worth it. Even though this is like one of the stars of the channel, this is one of the key cars. It's not the key car, but it's up there, isn't it? I mean, if the metrics are anything to go by, this is more popular than the SM. But, you know, I don't buy the cars for the metrics, I buy them for me, so I want the SM. But yeah, it's almost like it's this or the SM. It's that level of work. And it financially makes no sense. So, and I can't afford it anyway. I couldn't afford to buy another £800 worth of parts to do the back, and then a radiator's needed at the front. That's 300 plus VAT, I think. It needs brake discs and pads by the look of it. It's going to need, I mean, carpeting and interior and everything. I was going to kind of DIY that and go a bit wacky with it, so I'm not too fussed about that. It needs a boot lid. That's 350 quid for a GRP one. It needs more of the headlamp linkage stuff. It needs Exhaust, although I've got a used one now off Audrey because he's bought a lovely stainless one, and for now I suppose I could possibly patch that up. I don't know, I'm going on, I'm waffling, I'm thinking out loud, but that's basically where we're at. Is it curtains for Clement? I think it might well be. Yeah, I'm overstretching myself with my abilities, with my time, and what I've got on my plate. Clement was not supposed to be a project the size of the SM. It was supposed to be a smaller project. I knew it was going to be a project, but it was supposed to be smaller than that, and now it is growing, and it's catching the SM, really. In many ways, the SM is now not as bad as this, because the SM hasn't been bodged, it's just been sat around and it's rotten away in places, which means you just cut back to where it's not rotten and then make new bits. Very time consuming, but straightforward. Whereas this, how the whole thing has to be inspected. Everything, all the sealant, all the underseal, all the paint that's been put on it. I have to go back peeling bits of carpet off to make sure there aren't holes in sills. God, I know, first VEP and now this. Rubbish end of the year, isn't it? I welcome your thoughts. I don't normally. Some of you I do, but yeah, I don't normally ask people's opinions, I just follow my gut. But in this instance, yeah, what would you do? Carrying on, persevering with it, would only be a personal achievement, and one I'd be proud of, but financially, no benefit in it at all. And I'm not saying I'll do this for the financial benefit, but there has to be something at the end of it. I can't just be hurling money away on nothing, because I would be. To persevere and continue the plan with this car would just be akin to pouring money into a drain. It would be completely pointless. You wouldn't say that about the SM, because even if the SM needs, and I don't have this, but even if it needed £20,000 throwing at it, plus the £4,000 I spent when I bought it, done up, well, that's probably worth twice that. It's probably worth 40, maybe 35 because it's an auto, but if it's really tidy and it's a good colour and everything. Whereas this, a mint D Super 5 is not huge money, relatively speaking, well, compared to the SM. A mint one, you're probably talking 20 for a D Super 5, because although all DSs look very similar, spec is very important. Some of them are worth 40. Some of the convertibles are worth ridiculous sums of money. I think the saloons look better personally, but some of the convertibles are worth ridiculous money. Some of the saloons are worth big money, despite the fact they look the same as a more basic one. But yeah, I can't think of anything funny to end on. Sorry. Yeah. No, that's it.